The first bomb fell on Paris at exactly 3 in the afternoon, and 12 million people looked up at a sky filled with ships that should not exist. Ambassador Nera pressed her face against the observation window of the Council station orbiting beyond Mars. She had been sent to document the extinction of another primitive species, a task she had performed 17 times before. The Dominion of United Species always won. They had conquered 400 worlds in the last 1,000 years, and Earth would simply be number 401. Admiral Rethvan commanded the invasion fleet from his flagship, a vessel so large it cast a shadow across entire continents. His species, the Valthorians, stood 8 feet tall with scales that shifted color based on mood. Right now, his scales gleamed bright gold with confidence. "Begin the cleansing," he ordered. 12,000 warships opened fire simultaneously. Plasma beams, kinetic bombardments, and nuclear payloads rained down upon Earth. The planet should have burned, the oceans should have boiled, every city should have become ash within the first hour. None of that happened. Deep beneath Geneva, Director Amara Webb watched the attack unfold on screens that covered every wall. She was a small woman with gray hair and calm eyes that had seen too much. Around her, officers from every nation worked in perfect coordination, shield network holding at 94%. Someone reported, "Titan platforms are charged and ready," said another. Webb nodded slowly. "Not yet, let them waste their ammunition." On the Council station, analyst Gorvin ran the same calculations for the 5th time. His species, the Melori, were known for their mathematical precision. But these numbers made no sense. "Ambassador," he whispered, "Earth is generating more power than our entire fleet combined. That is impossible. Their civilization should not have this capability for another 10,000 years. Nera felt something cold settle in her stomach. She had dismissed humans as primitives barely capable of reaching their own moon. Now she watched their world absorb enough firepower to crack a planet's core. Admiral Rethvan's scales shifted from gold to pale gray. For hours into the bombardment, Earth remained intact. His ships had expended 30% of their ammunition reserves. The shields had not even flickered. "Deploy ground forces," he commanded. "If we cannot break them from above, we will crush them below." Transport ships descended through Earth's atmosphere. 200,000 Dominion soldiers landed across 6 continents. They expected resistance from frightened primitives with chemical weapons and simple projectiles. The cities were empty. Every street, every building, every vehicle sat abandoned. The soldiers advanced through ghost towns, their sensors detecting nothing. Some commanders thought the humans had fled underground to hide. They were half right. Private Kethanel was the first to hear the rumbling. He served in a unit that landed in what humans called the Rocky Mountains. The ground beneath his feet began to vibrate, then it began to crack. The mountain split open, a structure rose from the Earth's crust, black metal and glowing energy conduits forming a tower that reached toward the clouds. Kethanel had studied military history. He recognized weapon platforms when he saw them. But this was unlike anything in Dominion records. "What is that?" his commander breathed. Across the planet, identical structures emerged, from the depths of the Mariana Trench, from beneath the Sahara Desert, from under the Antarctic ice. 17 Titan defense platforms rose like angry gods awakening from slumber. Director Webb finally gave the order, "Engage." The first beam struck Admiral Rethvan's flagship and carved through it like a blade through water. 3 decks vaporized instantly. The Admiral stumbled as his ship screamed around him. "Return fire," he shouted. "All ships concentrate on those platforms." But the Dominion fleet was designed for orbital bombardment, not space combat against equal opponents. They had never needed such capabilities. No one had ever fought back. On the Council station, Ambassador Nera watched 400 Dominion warships die in the next 60 minutes. The Titan platforms fired with impossible precision, each shot finding critical systems and reactor cores. Escape pods scattered across the void as crews abandoned burning vessels. "They knew," Gorvin said, his voice trembled. "The humans knew we were coming. They prepared for this. They have been preparing for years." Nera thought about every intelligence report she had ever read about Earth. They described a divided species, constantly at war with itself, barely capable of cooperation. Those reports now seemed like carefully constructed lies. Admiral Rethvan received casualty updates that made his scales turn white with fear. 60% of his ground forces had gone silent. Underground tunnels connected every major population center, and human soldiers emerged from them like ghosts. They struck with weapons that burned through Dominion armor and vanished before anyone could return fire. The humans were not hiding from the invasion, they had lured it into a trap. Rethvan made a decision that would haunt the galaxy. He opened his personal communication channel to the Dominion High Command. Authorize extinction protocol. He said, I am deploying planet-killer weapons. Ambassador Nira intercepted the transmission. Her heart stopped. Extinction weapons were banned by galactic law. Using them meant annihilating all life on a world, burning the atmosphere and poisoning the oceans for 10,000 years. The Dominion was about to commit the greatest war crime in galactic history, and somewhere on Earth, Director Webb received intelligence about the incoming weapons. She smiled. Tell the fleet commanders, she said quietly. Phase 2 is now authorized. The officers around her exchanged glances. They had trained for this moment their entire careers. Now it was finally time to show the galaxy what humanity could really do. Above Earth, hidden among orbital debris that had floated for decades, ships began to move. 700 years ago, a damaged alien vessel crashed in the Siberian wilderness, and the Russian Empire buried the wreckage in ice and lies. That single event changed everything. The human fleet emerged from nowhere. 300 warships materialized from what the Dominion had classified as orbital garbage, defunct satellites, abandoned stations, and floating debris transformed into weapons of war. Their hulls were black. Their engines ran silent, and their weapons charged with energy that made Ambassador Nira's instruments scream warnings. Where did they come from? Admiral Rethvan demanded, his flagship listed badly, smoke pouring from 3 decks. Our scans showed no vessels capable of. Another beam struck his ship. The bridge shook so violently that officers tumbled from their stations. Director Webb watched the space battle from Geneva. Holographic displays showed every ship, every missile, every beam of energy exchanged between the fleets. Human vessels moved in patterns that confused Dominion targeting systems. They used Earth's gravity well as a weapon, slingshotting around the planet to strike from unexpected angles. The Dominion flagship is launching extinction weapons, reported Admiral Chen, commander of the human fleet. His face appeared on Webb's screen, calm despite the chaos around him. 3 missiles, planet killer class, impact in 7 minutes. Nira screamed across all communication frequencies, Earth, you must evacuate. Those weapons will crack your crust and boil your oceans. Nothing survives extinction-class bombardment. The humans did not respond. The 3 missiles accelerated toward Earth. Each one carried enough destructive power to end all life on a world. The Dominion had used them before, on species that resisted too effectively. Nothing in the galaxy could stop them once launched. Analyst Gorvan prayed to gods his species had abandoned centuries ago. He had grown fond of these strange bipeds during his observations. Their art, their music, their stubborn refusal to surrender had earned his respect. Now he would watch them die. The missiles entered Earth's atmosphere, then they stopped. Gorvan blinked. His instruments showed the weapons hanging motionless in the sky above Europe. They vibrated against invisible bonds, their engines burning at maximum thrust, going nowhere. Impossible, he whispered. Director Webb stood before her command staff with her hands clasped behind her back. Deploy the gravity anchors. Send those missiles back where they came from. Humanity had learned the secret of gravity manipulation, not from theory or experimentation, but from the crashed vessel in Siberia. 7 centuries of reverse engineering, hidden from every alien observer, had given Earth technology that the galaxy believed extinct. The missiles reversed course. They climbed back through the atmosphere, accelerating toward the Dominion fleet. Admiral Rethvan watched his own weapons returning to him. Impossible, he said. Gravity manipulation was lost with the precursors. No species has recreated. The missiles detonated in the heart of his fleet. 300 Dominion ships vanished in nuclear fire. The remainder scattered, their formations broken, their commanders panicking. On the council station, Ambassador Nira fell to her knees. Her people had legends about the precursors, the ancient race that ruled the galaxy before mysteriously vanishing. They had commanded forces beyond comprehension, bent space to their will, and treated other species like children. Humans had just demonstrated precursor technology. Admiral Rethvan abandoned his dying flagship. His escape pod tumbled through the debris field that had been his invasion fleet. Of the 12,000 ships he had brought to Earth, fewer than 2,000 remained. His ground forces were gone, wiped out by an enemy that fought like shadows. Human boarding parties captured his pod within minutes. he expected torture, execution, or worse. His species would have done terrible things to a defeated enemy commander. Instead, a human soldier offered him water. "You are a prisoner of war," the soldier said. "You will be treated according to the Geneva Conventions. Do you require medical attention?" Rethvan stared at the alien. This creature had just watched his people attempt genocide against her homeworld. She had every right to hatred, to vengeance. Instead, she showed concern for his injuries. "Why," he managed, "we tried to destroy your entire species." The soldier shrugged. "That is not who we are." Director Webb broadcast a message across every communication frequency in the solar system. Her voice reached the council station, the surviving Dominion vessels, and countless monitoring systems throughout the galaxy. "This is Earth. We did not seek this war, we did not want this conflict. But we will not apologize for defending our home. The Dominion attacked us without provocation and deployed weapons banned by galactic law. We have defeated them, but we do not desire conquest or revenge." She paused, letting her words sink in. "We ask only for peace. We ask only for the right to exist. Any species that respects this wish will find us to be generous friends. Any species that threatens humanity will face the same fate as this invasion fleet." The message ended with coordinates, a location deep in forbidden space where no ship had traveled in 10,000 years. "Those who wish to understand who we truly are," Webb concluded, "may find answers there. We are not monsters, we are not conquerors, but we are no longer hiding." Ambassador Nira stared at the coordinates. They pointed to the precursor exclusion zone, a region sealed off since before recorded history. Every species knew the warnings: enter that space and never return. Yet the humans spoke of it as if it held answers, as if it held their origin. Nira made a decision that would change her life forever. She commandeered a shuttle and set course for Earth. The council would call her a traitor, her own people would disown her, but she had to know the truth. What were humans, really? The precursor exclusion zone had no stars. 10,000 years ago, something had extinguished every sun within 100 light-years, leaving only darkness and the wreckage of ancient civilizations. Ambassador Nira piloted her shuttle alongside a human vessel called the Horizon. Director Webb had approved her request to join the expedition, reasoning that a council witness might prove valuable. The crew treated Nira with cautious respect, neither hostile nor fully trusting. Captain Silva commanded the Horizon, a woman with dark skin and silver hair who moved with quiet authority. She had lost her brother in the Dominion attack, yet she showed no hatred toward Nira or the captured Admiral Rethvan, who had been brought along for reasons Webb refused to explain. "We are approaching the coordinates," Silva announced. "Everyone prepare for the unexpected." The ship emerged from hyperspace into absolute darkness. No stars, no planets, no visible light of any kind, but their sensors painted a different picture. There, Nira breathed. A space station hung in the void, larger than any structure she had ever seen. It stretched for thousands of kilometers, its surface covered with symbols that made her heart ache with recognition. Every species in the galaxy knew those markings. They appeared on ancient ruins scattered across 1,000,000 worlds. Precursor architecture. The station was still active. Energy pulsed through its systems after 10 millennia of dormancy. Something had triggered its awakening. "We are receiving a docking invitation," the communications officer reported. "The station is expecting us." Captain Silva looked at Nira, then at Rethvan, then at the impossible structure before them. "Take us in." The interior of the station defied comprehension. Corridors shifted and changed as they walked, rearranging themselves to guide visitors toward a central chamber. The walls displayed images. Cities of impossible beauty, beings of light and energy, technologies that bent reality itself, and humans. Nira stopped before a mural depicting a planet with blue oceans and green continents. Earth, unmistakably, but the humans in the image stood beside precursor beings, equals rather than primitives. "What is this?" Rethvan demanded. His captivity had humbled him, but curiosity remained. The answer came from the chamber ahead. A voice spoke in every language simultaneously, directly into their minds. "Welcome, children, you have finally come home." The chamber held a single pedestal supporting a crystalline sphere. Within the sphere swirled light and shadow, the preserved consciousness of a being that had lived when the galaxy was young. "I am the keeper," the voice continued. "I was created to wait for this moment, to explain what humanity truly is." Nira listened as 10,000 years of hidden history unfolded. The precursors had not vanished, they had sacrificed themselves. an enemy had emerged from beyond the galaxy, a force of pure destruction that consumed everything it touched. The precursors called it the Void. It could not be defeated, only contained, so the precursors built a prison. They sealed the Void away using their mastery of gravity and space, but the prison required guardians, beings capable of maintaining the seals across millennia, beings who could survive anything. We created you, the Keeper said. Humanity was engineered from our own genetic template, modified to survive the harshest conditions imaginable. We placed you on Earth specifically because it would forge you into survivors. Ice ages, plagues, predators, natural disasters, everything that nearly destroyed you also made you stronger. Captain Silva stepped forward. Why hide this from us? Because you were not ready. You needed to develop naturally, to build your own civilization, to learn compassion and cooperation through struggle. Other species evolved on peaceful worlds. They became soft, dependent on technology, incapable of true sacrifice. Humans learned to endure. Humans learned to adapt. Humans learned to protect. Rethvan understood now. That is why you showed us mercy. You were designed to be guardians, not conquerors. Yes, the Keeper confirmed. The Dominion attacked Earth expecting primitives. They found the children of the precursors, awakened and armed with their inheritance. Ambassador Nira thought of the council, of the hundreds of species who lived in fear of each other, constantly preparing for the next war. They had no idea what lurked beyond the galaxy's edge. The Void, she said, is it still contained? The Keeper's light flickered with something that might have been sorrow. The seals are failing. For 10,000 years, they have weakened. In perhaps a century, perhaps less, the Void will escape. When that happens, everything in this galaxy will die unless someone stands against it. Unless we stand against it, Silva said. Yes, this is your purpose. This is why you exist. Not to conquer worlds or dominate other species, but to protect them, even those who hate you, even those who attack you. Even those who tried to destroy your home. Rethvan fell to his knees. His species had attempted genocide against the very beings meant to save them. The weight of that knowledge crushed him. Can you ever forgive us? He asked. Captain Silva looked at the being who had ordered the deaths of millions of her people. She thought of her brother, buried in the rubble of Buenos Aires. She thought of children who would never grow up, families torn apart, cities reduced to ash. Then she offered Rethvan her hand. Forgiveness is what makes us human, she said. Stand up, we have work to do. The expedition returned to Earth carrying knowledge that would reshape the galaxy. Director Webb reviewed their reports and made a decision. The truth could no longer stay hidden. It was time to address the council. The council chamber had not seen a human in 10,000 years. Ancient records mention visitors who looked like the beings now walking through its doors, but those records were classified as myth and legend. Director Webb entered alone. She wore no armor, carried no weapons, and brought no guards. 300 species watched her approach the central podium where accused criminals and conquered peoples traditionally stood. She climbed onto it willingly. You have all heard rumors, she began. About what we discovered in the exclusion zone, about what humanity truly is. I am here to confirm those rumors and to make you an offer. Elder Vostanic, the oldest member of the council, leaned forward. His species had governed galactic affairs for 6,000 years. He had seen empires rise and fall, species evolve and go extinct, but he had never seen anything like the readings from Earth's defense systems. You claim to be descendants of the precursors, he said. That is a significant claim. The precursors were gods compared to any species alive today. We are not gods, Webb replied. We are their children, designed for a purpose most of you have forgotten. The Void is real, it is waking, and when it escapes, nothing in this galaxy will survive. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Void was a legend, a story told to frighten young ones. Most species dismissed it as primitive superstition. Admiral Rethvan stepped forward. The former enemy commander had requested permission to address the council. Webb had granted it. I led the attack on Earth, he announced. I ordered the deployment of extinction weapons. I am guilty of attempted genocide, and I stand before you to say that everything Director Webb claims is true. The chamber erupted. Rethvan was a decorated officer from one of the most powerful species in the Dominion. His testimony carried weight. I visited the precursor station, he continued. I saw the archives. I spoke with the Keeper. Humanity was created to protect this galaxy, and we tried to destroy them for it. Our species has spent millennia conquering and exploiting others. The humans had every right to exterminate us in return. Instead, they showed mercy. he displayed holographic recordings from the expedition. The council watched in silence as the keeper explained humanity's origins and purpose. They saw the ancient warnings about the void. They witnessed evidence of failing containment seals. Elder Vostanic absorbed this information with growing unease. His species had achieved dominance through careful manipulation and strategic weakness. They had never faced a threat that could not be negotiated with or deceived. "What do you want from us?" he asked Webb. "Partnership," she answered simply. "Humanity will share our defensive technology. We will help you prepare for what is coming. In return, we ask for recognition as equals and permanent peace. We are not interested in ruling the galaxy, we are interested in saving it." The debate lasted 3 days. Some species demanded humans be destroyed before they became too powerful, others argued for immediate alliance, a third faction suggested waiting to see if the void threat was real before committing to anything. Ambassador Nira spoke on the final day. She had been stripped of her title for breaking neutrality, but the council granted her the floor. "I watched the Dominion attack Earth," she said. "I watched humans die defending their home, and I watched them spare enemies who deserved death. I have studied hundreds of civilizations, none of them would have shown such restraint." She looked at each council member in turn. The humans could have demanded tribute, they could have enslaved the Dominion survivors, they could have turned their weapons on the council itself. Instead, they came here offering friendship. That alone should tell you what kind of species they are. The vote was closer than anyone expected, but when the results were announced, the council had chosen alliance over fear. Director Webb accepted the decision with grace. She did not gloat or demand concessions, she simply thanked the council and promised that humanity would honor its commitments. As she left the chamber, Elder Vostanic approached her privately. "I voted against alliance," he admitted. "I still believe humans will eventually dominate the galaxy. Your species is too capable, too resilient, too determined. You will outlast us all." Webb considered his words. "Perhaps, or perhaps we will prove that different species can work together as equals. Either way, the void does not care about politics. It will consume Dominion and Council and human alike if we fail to stop it. And you believe we can stop it?" "I believe we have to try. That is what the precursors created us for. That is why they sacrificed everything they were. I do not intend to waste their gift." Vostanic studied the human woman. She was smaller than most species in the galaxy, fragile-looking, with a lifespan barely worth noticing. Yet she spoke with absolute conviction. "Your species frightens me," he admitted. Webb smiled. "Good, fear can become respect. Respect can become trust, and trust can become friendship. We have time." Somewhere in the darkness beyond the galaxy's edge, something ancient stirred. It had slept for 10 millennia, dreaming of the light it would consume, but the dreams were ending, the seals were cracking, the void was waking, and humanity was finally ready to face it. The distress signal from Colony Verdant Prime arrived on a Tuesday, and by Wednesday, 3 billion people had stopped existing. The void had broken free. It poured through the shattered seals like living darkness, consuming stars and planets with equal hunger. Verdant Prime was a farming world, peaceful and defenseless. Director Webb received the news on Earth. She had known this day would come, she had prepared for it her entire life. "Deploy the first fleet," she ordered. "Evacuate survivors and engage the enemy." Admiral Chen led 50 human warships toward a battle no one had fought in 10,000 years. They carried weapons designed from precursor blueprints, gravity manipulators capable of binding the void. They arrived to find horror. The colony world was half consumed. Darkness covered its surface like a living shroud, eating through continents and drinking oceans dry. Refugee ships scattered in all directions, filled with terrified survivors who had watched their families disappear. "This is Admiral Chen to all ships," he broadcast. "Begin evacuation operations. Fighter squadrons, provide cover. Capital ships, prepare gravity anchors." The void noticed them. It rose from Verdant Prime like a wave of absolute night. Within that darkness moved shapes that hurt to observe, geometries that the mind rejected. No eyes, no mouth, no form that made sense, only hunger without end. Human ships opened fire, energy weapons blazed through the void, creating momentary wounds in the darkness, but the void healed almost instantly. "Gravity anchors deploying," Chen announced. The precursor technology activated. Invisible forces grabbed the void and held it in place. The entity thrashed against bonds it had not felt in 10 millennia. For the first time since awakening, it experienced something like surprise. On the refugee ships, survivors watched in disbelief. These strange pink aliens from a world called Earth were actually fighting the darkness, they were actually winning. A Dominion captain named Threll AK commanded one of the evacuation vessels. His species had tried to destroy Earth mere months ago, now humans were dying to protect his passengers. A human fighter pilot sacrificed her ship to destroy a tendril of void reaching toward his vessel. She did not eject, there was no time. Threll AK wept. His species had no tears, but the emotion was the same. The battle lasted 3 hours. Human ships surrounded the void with gravity anchors, creating a temporary prison. But the effort cost them dearly, 20 ships lost, 4,000 humans dead. Ambassador Nira arrived with council reinforcements as the fighting ended. She had convinced the Elder Council to send military support, the first time they had deployed forces beyond their own borders in centuries. We came as quickly as we could, she told Chen. How can we help? The Admiral looked at the void, still struggling against its bonds. We need to rebuild the permanent seals, it requires effort from every species. Can the Council coordinate? Nira nodded. I will make it happen. Word of the battle spread across the galaxy. News broadcasts showed human ships charging into impossible darkness. They showed evacuation efforts that saved hundreds of thousands of lives. They showed human medics treating wounded aliens before their own casualties. Species that had dismissed humanity as primitives reconsidered. Species that had feared humanity as threats began to hope. Director Webb addressed the galaxy one final time. She spoke from the bridge of a vessel orbiting the imprisoned void, standing before the very enemy she had been created to fight. The precursors sacrificed everything to give us this chance, she said. They engineered humanity to survive, to adapt, to protect. We did not ask for this responsibility, but we accept it, not because we want power, but because it is right. She looked directly into the camera. The galaxy attacked Earth. You sent your fleets to destroy us, your weapons to exterminate us, your armies to conquer us, and we responded with mercy. That is who we are, that is who we will always be, not conquerors or rulers, but guardians. Behind her, the void raged against its prison. It would take years to rebuild the permanent seals. It would require cooperation between species that had been enemies for millennia. It would demand sacrifices that no one could yet imagine. But for the first time in galactic history, every species was working toward the same goal. 6 months later, Ambassador Nira walked through a park on Earth. Children of a dozen species played together on grass that had never known alien feet before. The integration was slow, difficult, filled with misunderstandings and occasional conflicts, but it was happening. Director Webb sat beside her on a bench, watching the children with tired eyes. The weight of leadership had aged her, but she smiled at the scene before them. Was it worth it? Nira asked. All the death, all the suffering, all the fear. Webb considered the question. She thought of everyone who had died in the Dominion attack. She thought of the soldiers lost at Verdant Prime. She thought of the challenges still ahead. Ask me again in 1,000 years, she said, when the seals are rebuilt and the void is contained forever, when humans and aliens live together as equals, when no one remembers what it meant to be afraid of the dark. She watched a human child share her lunch with a young Dominion. Ask me then if it was worth it. I think you already know what my answer will be. The galaxy had attacked Earth expecting an easy victory. They found instead the guardians they never knew they needed. They found mercy when they deserved destruction. They found hope when all seemed lost. They found humanity, and humanity would never let them fall.